Everyone, and welcome to the Church World Service Lancaster Programs and Services component of our new volunteer orientation. We're really excited that you are choosing to walk alongside our newest neighbors as they begin new lives here in Lancaster County in peace and safety. A little bit about Church World Service. Church World Service is a global organization that was founded in 1946 in the aftermath of World War II with a mission to end hunger, promote peace, and justice. We are supported by 37 member communions and are active in more than 30 countries worldwide. We work in areas of food and water, disaster response and recovery, and assisting refugees and the vulnerable. And while these may seem like pretty disparate program areas, we know that these are all connected in the ways that access to clean food and water or responses to natural or man-made disasters and recovery all play a role in migration and forced displacement. Here in the United States, we are one of 9 U.S. refugee resettlement agencies, along with the other agencies that you see listed here. And together, we have over 200 local affiliates throughout the United States. Here in Lancaster, Church World Service is committed to showing welcome to refugees, immigrants, asylum seekers, and other uprooted people within the United States. We believe that all families deserve safety and dignity. Now we're going to talk a little bit about some of the legal definitions that you might hear either in your work with Church World Service Lancaster or in the broader national or global discourse around forced migration. Refugees are people who flee their country because of a well-founded fear of persecution based on their race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group, and who are unable or unwilling to return home. You'll see that this definition was first defined at the 1951 United Nations Convention on Refugees, again, coming out of the impacts of World War II. Since the time of this definition, we continue to learn more about the various factors that might impact forced displacement, such as things like climate change, poverty, and as of now, those variables are not currently included in this formal definition. Instead, here you see the categories or, factors that are considered when understanding and defining refugee status. And again, refugees are people who flee their country because of a well-founded fear of persecution based on something associated with their identity, on who they are as people. But we know that there are many reasons why it might be too difficult or too dangerous for people to stay in their home countries. So these are some of the other terms you might hear as you work with CWS or read more about forced migration in the news. Internally displaced people have been forced to flee their homes but have not yet crossed international borders. Asylum seekers are people who are seeking protection from dangers in their home country but whose claim for refugee status has not been processed yet. Migrants and immigrants cross international borders for a variety of reasons and may be in various documented or undocumented statuses or mixed status families. A stateless person is someone who does not have citizenship, which is the legal bond between a government and an individual in any country. As we talk about these legal definitions, it's important to remember that our newest neighbors who are joining us here in Lancaster or who are resettling around the world cannot be defined by a single story. These are legal definitions that are very important in understanding the rights and responsibilities that new neighbors may have, but legal definitions cannot fully define our newest neighbors. Being a refugee, immigrant, or asylum seeker is just one component of our newest neighbors' identities. The recently published UNHCR Global Trends in Forced Displacement indicates that there are 82.4 million displaced peoples worldwide. This includes those terms in people who are identified as refugees, asylum seekers, and internally displaced peoples. And of these 82.4 million displaced peoples, we know that 26.4 million are identified as refugees. Globally, we are facing a forced displacement crisis. Here you can see the top 10 countries of origin of displaced peoples as of mid-2020. We welcome in Lancaster many new neighbors from these countries, as well as other countries around the world. It's important to realize that forced displacement does not discriminate based off of location, type of government, economy, or income. Our newest neighbors come from around the world and have a wide variety of backgrounds. After fleeing their homeland, refugees have three options, or what are called durable solutions, by the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. The first is for refugees to return to their home country when their home country is deemed safe. For many people, this is their preferred option, as we know that people remain committed and connected to their home country, even in displacement. This is the place where many families were born, where they grew up, where they have friends and neighbors and families who may still be living there. Unfortunately, we also know that international crises can also be very protracted, with many of our newest neighbors having been in displacement for 10 to 15 years. We'll talk about that in just a second. And so, unfortunately, returning to a home country may not be possible. The second option is to settle into the country in which they fled. Many of the countries who are hosting refugees prior to any possibilities for resettlement may create opportunities for refugees to be integrated into life into that country. But unfortunately, because we are facing a global displacement crisis, the numbers are far too great for local countries to manage. So the final option, which is unfortunately available to less than 1% of refugees worldwide, is to resettle permanently into a third country like the United States. We know that life before resettlement is very challenging for our newest neighbors. We see that a typical time spent in displacement for families arriving to our office can be anywhere between 17 to 25 years. And so again, while refugee camps, as you see here in one of these images, or displacement into an urban setting, is meant to be, or is anticipated to be, a temporary solution, again, protracted crises make the opportunity to return home very limited. So many of our neighbors are spending 17 to 25 years in a refugee camp or in displacement before arriving to our office. Beginning in 1980, the United States created the U.S. Refugee Admissions Program. This program sets the number of refugees that can be admitted to the United States for resettlement each year. This is done through a process called presidential determination, when the United States President, in consultation with Congress, sets what is called the refugee admissions ceiling. So you can see here the sort of trajectory of the refugee admission ceiling, as well as the ultimate number of admitted refugees each year since the Refugee Admissions Program was created in 1980. The refugee admission ceiling sets the number of refugees who are able to be resettled into the United States as a whole. Refugee resettlement agencies, of which Church World Service is one, then works with their local offices to identify opportunities for resettlement in office locations around the United States. Here you can see a trajectory of refugee arrivals to Lancaster from 2009 to 2020. You can see a significant decrease in the number of refugees who have arrived to Lancaster in the past 4 years, but we are very excited about possibilities for an increase in refugee arrival as the newest presidential determination has been set at 125,000 for this current fiscal year 22. So we are really excited to welcome many more new neighbors to our beautiful county. As we mentioned earlier, refugees and new neighbors arriving in Lancaster come from around the world. You can see here the nationalities or countries of origin represented by our newest neighbors throughout fiscal year 2020. With a large number of our newest neighbors arriving after being displaced from the Democratic Republic of Congo. We've also welcomed new neighbors from Somalia, Eritrea, Burma, Vietnam, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, El Salvador, Guatemala, Afghanistan, and Syria. Here at the CWS Lancaster office, we have 5 main programs with several smaller programs within each, totaling up to 5 years of service and support to refugees. Our primary programs are resettlement and placement, intensive case management and navigation, also known as extended services, employment services, immigration legal services, and community engagement. Our resettlement program is one of our largest and probably most well-known programs here in the CWS Lancaster office. And through this program, we are able to operate the U.S. Reception and Placement Program, RMP, and the Matching Grant Program, MG. The U.S. Reception and Placement Program is the program that allows us to welcome new neighbors to Lancaster and gives us the opportunity to provide 90 to 180 days of service to new neighbors. Through this program, we welcome new neighbors at the airport, provide initial housing, furniture, clothing, and food. Case managers work closely with new neighbors in facilitating medical appointments, school registration for any school-aged children. We partner with our employment services program to provide an employment orientation, and we're providing cultural orientation throughout the program duration. Our matching grant program allows us to extend the initial reception and placement program by helping refugees and other Office of Refugee Resettlement eligible populations overcome barriers and quickly find jobs. The goal is for refugees to become financially independent and self-sufficient in 4 to 6 months after arrival into the United States. And we are proud to say that the majority of our newest neighbors are able to achieve this in such a short amount of time. As part of our reception and placement program and relationship with the U.S. government as a resettlement agency, we receive limited funding from the U.S. government to provide what are called core services within the first 30 days of arrival. These core services focus initially on material needs and survival, those things like housing, access to food, furniture. Services required towards the end of the RMP program focus on supporting clients as they achieve self-sufficiency. And these services must be provided on a timeline required by the U.S. government. Because of this, new neighbors have a large number of appointments and required initial meetings within the first 30 days. This often includes initial possible temporary housing with a move to more permanent housing, visits to the Social Security office, health appointments, school registration, employment services, things like job interviews, orientations, etc. So it's important to recognize as you join CWS Lancaster in standing in solidarity and walking alongside our newest neighbors, that the first 30 days will be incredibly busy and often incredibly stressful for our newest neighbors as they begin to get used to life here in Lancaster. We are also able to offer extended support programs for up to 5 years of service, including our Preferred Communities Health Program, our PC program. That program is able to provide intensive case management for health and mental health needs, provide support groups for women and youth. We also have a Good Job, Happy Family program, which is a holistic family-based extended services program with a goal to partner with new neighbors in identifying goals and supporting the family in achieving those family goals. These may be economic self-sufficiency, career pathways, recognizing that many of our newest neighbors may have spent a very long time in displacement. Future planning can feel especially challenging as new neighbors who may have been in refugee camps for 10, 15, or 20 years have been in a sort of state of suspended animation to a certain extent, in that there's been no real opportunity to plan for the future and identify goals. So our Good Job, Happy Family program works closely with new families and families within 3 years of arrival as they begin to settle in Lancaster and identify opportunities for growth. One of our newest programs within our extended support programs area is our Girls Who Code program. And here we're partnering with young refugee women and immigrant women to develop coding skills, improve digital literacy, and explore career opportunities in science, technology, engineering, and math. Our Employment Services Program works directly with new neighbors to assess clients' vocational background, skills, and work experience in order to help find an initial work placement. Employment specialists are also able to provide up to 5 years of career development support as new neighbors move from their initial career placement to identifying areas of growth and potential career pathways. Again, here it's important to understand that our newest neighbors are joining us with a wide variety of backgrounds and skills, with some new neighbors having completed higher level formal education and serving in roles as doctors and lawyers in their home countries, and other new neighbors who may be joining us here in Lancaster with limited work or schooling experience. So our employment specialists work closely with new neighbors as they prepare resumes, identify area employers for employment, setting up interviews, providing employment orientation, and following up with clients and new employers. Our Immigration Legal Services Program provides broad legal services support to former refugees, immigrants, and asylum seekers in the central Pennsylvania area. Church World Service Lancaster is recognized by the Executive Office for Immigration Review from the U.S. Department of Justice, and 4 of our staff members have been accredited to represent clients before the U.S. Bureau of Citizenship and Immigration Services and the immigration courts. Our Immigration Legal Services team provides low-cost and often pro bono support for neighbors who are applying for permanent residence, citizenship assistance, including citizenship application and partnerships with other local nonprofits to provide citizenship preparation classes. We work with new neighbors to provide travel documents, consultations, and representation and counseling for unaccompanied minors. It's important to understand that CWS's work and refugee resettlement as a whole is a public-private partnership. Um, We are very humbled and proud to work in Lancaster County, which we all know has proven to be a very welcoming community for new neighbors. And you, by joining us as a CWS Lancaster volunteer, uh, have indicated your commitment to welcoming new neighbors from around the world. This is just a quick overview of our service plan for our newest neighbors. Um, you can see here, again, beginning with those initial core services, focusing on those material needs, and moving along um, a path to integration, where refugees continue on the path to citizenship and building meaningful and fulfilling lives in their new home. Our integration framework recognizes that CWS supports refugees to set their own path towards integrating into their newest communities, from initial welcome to self reliance and ultimately to thriving. As an organization, we value a strengths based, client centered approach, recognizing and empowering new neighbors to regain agency and ability to make choices about their own lives. We believe in robust partnership and advocacy to build welcoming communities, and transparency and accountability to those we serve.